Hi, everyone. My name is Holly Hughes, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for BAI. Today, I'm looking forward to having a conversation with several industry leaders as part of the BAI Deep Dive series on making digital transformation in lending a reality. Joining me today is Ajay Bhandari, Portfolio Head of U.S. Regional Banks at Infosys, Sherry Graziano, Head of Digital Banking and Contact Centers at Truist, and Neal Shah, Head of Enterprise Operations and IT Strategy at Regions Bank. Ajay, Sherry, Neal, thanks so much for joining me today. Great to have you. Let's go ahead and jump right in. And I'll pose this first question to Ajay. To help set the stage, can you share how lending as a service has evolved and the opportunities that it presents?
Sure. Thanks, Holly, and great to be on this esteemed panel. It's my privilege to be here. Pretty interesting topic, pretty relevant topic in these times. Lending as a service is one of the latest trends in the embedded finance and fintech industry. It's an area where a lot of activities happening both within the banks and outside of the banks. It's about replacing the legacy applications and really moving to a digital as a service platform and reimagining the entire business process to a large extent. There are a lot of benefits of this. Of course, loans can be approved in much faster time frame, sometimes in minutes. The disbursement can happen within hours. And it's something where you really see a significant customer experience uplift and an area where you can meet the client where they are when they want to meet you. So it's a pretty much a very strong trend. By multiple estimates, this whole area is expected to double in the next 2 years. So what it was in 2021, by 24 it will almost be double the size. So we'll see a lot of activity and action in this space. Some of the key areas where I see key opportunities where there is a benefit by leveraging as a service platform. Of course, you tap into the digital demand generation. You kind of are able to get to online customer acquisition, onboarding. There is a lot of automated decisioning and process improvement that comes along with this. And most importantly, you could actually tailor an offer to a particular individual or a set of segment that you want to. So a lot of customization can happen on the fly, in this process. So it's a trend which is disrupting the traditional way of lending to really make it micro as well as making it something which happens on the fly. While this is a trend which is really picking up in North America and Europe, in the Asia Pacific, financial institutions have been using this for a lot of time now, and they've been leaders, I think, in this, in trying to using lending as a service platforms. Really, primarily because of the way data privacy laws are there, as well as the market itself, the way it is matured. So it's an interesting place. I do expect a lot of action to happen, a lot of investments to come from banks, non-banks, a lot of new projects to start for clients to look at what's happening in this space and how they can tap into and maximize the return for them. It can give them a top line uplift, but also it can help their bottom line significantly. Just for the banks, I know we have seen studies where it shows by adopting as a service model, they could actually reduce the cost by almost 70 to 80% for acquisition as well as for servicing their clients. So a significant play, and I look forward to hearing from my other colleagues on this. But that's a very interesting and important trend that we see evolving.
Definitely. Thanks for setting the stage for us, Ajay. And Sherry and Neal, you're doing this work directly at your organizations. Sherry, I'll start with you, and then we'd love to get Neal's perspective as well. How does lending as a service align with your organization's key priorities overall?
Yeah, and Holly, thanks for having us as well. And thank you, Ajay, for kicking us off. I'm going to pick up sort of right where you left off, which is as you really think about reimagining your experiences and meeting clients where they want to be met, you have an incredible opportunity to reimagine the future. And as we start to think about client and teammate-centric transformation, you think about key priorities and thinking through things like it's not just technology, it's how do you take technology and human touch to deliver on trust. And we talk all about T3 at Truist, and we mean that when you think about a key strategic priority. Not every client will want to be served in the digital channel end to end. So it's really thinking through how do you leverage that technology and how do you also leverage human touch to deliver on trust for a client. We know when you think about reimagining the experience, And I think Ajay started here. It's like we've got a lot of data, and clients expect us to have some level of personalization, and whether that be in a digital channel, whether that be in a physical channel, and whether that be face to face over the phone. Our clients are expecting us to leverage that information and make sure that we actually show them that we know who they are. And the other thing I would just add, and I think we've started here, is as we think about digital transformation more broadly, it's transformation in business processes as well. But if you start with what is it that your client aspires and what is it that your client needs from a jobs to be done perspective, you're very quickly then going to understand what are the capabilities that you need to deliver for your clients and your teammates to differentiate on customer experience.
Thanks, Sherry. Neal, how about you from your perspective at Regions? How is it aligning?
Yeah, well, Holly, thank you for having me, and great comments by Ajay and Sherry. So, along the same lines, at Regions, one of our key values is making banking easier for our customers, right? So we're well aware that customers have choice today like they've never had before, and expecting them to work around our channels and our processes built, in the past, that sometimes have high levels of friction is no longer a strategy or an option. So we think a lot about how to be customer centric, and lending as a service, like some of the panelists have said, is really about meeting the customers in their journey. What's going on in their day-to-day in their life, and how are we there as a financial institutions to support them? So an example of this for us, one of our key strategies is banking homeowners. Well, we know if you own a home that, there's quite a few things that can come up unexpectedly. An HVAC goes out, you need a new door, a new window, a number of home improvement projects. Well, right now we have a network of contractors that we work with that are able to use our technology to offer, on the spot, point of sale loans for, some of these expenditures. So what we were able to do is offer the convenience of, hey, this is right then and now. It's a need for the customer. Often, your consumer is not going to have that type of, cash or to be able to pay that very quickly. So we need to get them something quickly, and it's happening in their homes, right where they are at that time. They expect something convenient in the application process, very convenient and quick in the fulfillment process, but then also the trust, right? When you combine that service with a brand name, like some of the larger banks may have, it provides that level of trust versus something that's maybe a little less unknown. And the transparency is obviously key, right? As they're signing up for something, they need to know exactly what they're signing up for. So when it comes to our strategy and how lending as a service aligns, it's very much about making banking easier for the customer and meeting them in their journey.
Yeah, that's great. I love the consistent theme of that customer centricity. So important. Ajay, a question back to you. This is not easy work. These are very complex projects. What type of mindset or process does it take to transform the lending process from end to end?
Great point, Holly. I think as we always talk to our clients, as Infosys believes truly about the fact that digital transformation is not about a technology project. It's actually a change in the mindset. It's change to processes and thinking. It's actually a lot of times fighting your internal silos in any organization as well. So, a transformation, or specifically digital transformation, cuts across the organization. So it's not about a large project that you need to go for. It's actually, driven right from a cultural change, right from the core, right from trying to, make a very different way of looking at things. And that's where our philosophy is very clear that when you want to drive lending as a service or any kind of a digital transformation, it's almost like reimagining the process from scratch. And that is where, if you think about it, a lot of times we see that fintechs are trying to come into the space to say they are starting from grounds up with no, on a scratch pad, for them to reimagine the process and what the customers or the borrowers are expecting and how do you flow through that. That's a very simple way for them to build on that. I'll take an example of what happened during PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program that was launched immediately after COVID. Everybody was trying to, grapple with, meeting their clients, helping small businesses with what was happening during the COVID time. And the government launched the PPP program to, help them. I saw a lot of banks very quickly jumping on and creating a very interesting quick digital platform. It was, stood from scratch. I know Truist did it, Regions did it, a lot of other banks did it very quickly. And that was the front end, which was built very quickly, ease of integration for SMEs to start, inputting their data and giving the information. But then the back end of it, which was, the way the big banks were working, the federal banks were working, it was all still the same old way of doing it. And that was cumbersome. I know some of them had to actually drop their front end and say, there's a lot of manual process. While the front end is quick and easy, clients are getting frustrated because while that process is there, the back end takes a longer time and there are a lot of gaps there. And I think that to some extent frustrates the customer than actually makes them happy. So it's about, it's about reimagining the entire process end to end, not just a piece of it, because if you do a piece of it, it may look good, but it will last only for so long. And then suddenly the experience will start deteriorating from there. So, our focus has been, when you look at any transformation like this, look at it end to end, look at the various segments of it, get multiple stakeholders that are there internally along together, because it's, as I said, it's not about one team doing it. It's not, if you have silos, they are going to be, you will struggle to do it. So I think that's where we see that it's a mindset change, it's a process change. The benefits are enormous, and that's where we are seeing a lot of our clients trying to take a step back, reimagine the process, and come back with a new process with the new platforms that they need to meet their objectives.
Yeah, so important to have that right mindset, heading in for sure. And I think the PPP a really good example to share with the group. Ajay, another question for you. Would love to talk a little bit about buy versus build or hybrid models. So another, big decision that needs to go into this as it's relating to these lending systems. Could you share a little bit about the pros and the cons of those different approaches and things that people should consider when evaluating partners in this space?
Sure, absolutely. And again, that's a eternal question. Should you buy? Should you build? How should you go about it? And I know when I say either of them, when I say buy, there are a lot of clients who will say, no, we are not into buying. We want to quickly build it and control it. And then of course, a lot of the clients think about they want to buy and quickly run. But I'll just use a quote that one of my clients had told me, which was actually very, very interesting. It was that, these days, it is not about the big beating the small. Gone are the days when you are a big powerhouse, whether it is a bank or an industry trying to, beat up a small organization. Nowadays, it's about fast versus slow. So who's faster, and that they are going to be the winners of it. So I think in this lending as a service or any digital transformation, it actually you have to look at the agility of it. And how do you really want to go about it? It's a journey. And like we said earlier, it's a mindset change. You have to think about it in a very different way. But in this journey, how do you want to go about it? And what we have seen a lot of our clients do is really take a hybrid approach. You have to evaluate the ecosystem that you have. You can't give up what you have completely and then move to a new, you're not starting from scratch. You actually have an existing bank you're running, a process you're running. You have to kind of figure out what is there, which works well for you. How do you really keep that? What can you build? If you have to integrate and create something internally, but more importantly, who can you partner with to kind of bring those capabilities in? I have seen some of our clients, partner strategically with fintechs, with some of the new products, new players in the market. Some of them, and I think both of the both Truist and Regions actually have acquired some capabilities as well to acquire it and then try to build upon that. So I think it's a hybrid approach where you look at what you have, how do you bring in the capability from outside, integrate it with your offerings, and really make it such that it can be scaled quickly. So I think you have to look at time to market. That is going to be an extremely important thing. You don't have the luxury of time to build it from scratch. You have to get something, partner with somebody, and then bring it in house. And that's where I think that as most things that are evolving today, it's an ecosystem. You probably have to also figure out how you work with your partners. If you are trying to do a BPNL or BNPL, if you're trying to get buy now pay later kind of a service, it has to be you have to have ability to partner with a retailer where you can give them your API for them to originate or get a service or a credit from you. So I think that's where the model of hybrid is where it is evolving. And I think that's where the ecosystem is going to be the key in taking this forward.
Neal and Sherry would love to get your thoughts on this topic as well. Yeah, Sherry, do you want to start?
I would love to. And Ajay made so many valid points. I think the other thing I would just offer, and Ajay, you nailed it, is as you think about speed to market and your existing resources you already have running maybe, kind of BAU, you really have to be thoughtful there. But the other big piece is, as you think about your client experience and the ability to differentiate, going back to, are you just trying to achieve parity, or are you actually trying to differentiate in some capacity on whatever it is the capability is when you're making that decision around buy, build, or hybrid? I think that's a really important piece. In some cases, in some different areas, businesses, you may have, an organization or a provider, a service provider who doesn't really allow you much customization. And in some cases that may be okay, but in other, if it's client facing, do you really want to look like, the rest of the pack? And are you looking to have some level of differentiation with your client experience? So that's another thing to consider above and beyond all the wonderful, I think, comments that Ajay made around how do you think about speed to market? How do you think about resources you have running your business? And the other piece too is, encouraging the teams to think in parallel around how are you reimagining your business process? The one thing I would say here that's really important is partnerships matter. It's not just about, what vendor, quote unquote, can bring you some sort of solution and how might you think about that rolling into that broader ecosystem, but you really need to have partners who are thought leaders who can help maybe push on your business processes in parallel to make sure that what you're delivering is actually going to achieve business outcomes as well.
Thanks, Sherry. Neal, anything else that you would add?
I think Sherry said it really well. It's about differentiation. Where do you want to differentiate? And does that, buy versus build help you differentiate? And, what's the opportunity that you're going after? Are you going to be kind of bleeding edge? Are you catching up? Are you closing a gap? That all goes into the build versus buy decision. And then it's, competency too. Like, do we have the ability to build some of these things? And even in a buy situation, you end up building. I mean, you build integrations. So there's never just a complete, hey, off the shelf, no integrations into your existing data. There's always going to be a level of build. It's just how much do you want to build? Where do you want to build? And is that going to differentiate you? Is that, a strategy for winning long term? And then, how much can you support these applications going forward? How much of the vendor would you like, to support versus how much of, your internal staff? And that also goes into it. So I think it's there's never just a buy or build kind of just one time. I think it just depends on the situation, depends on the opportunity at hand. But there's a lot of, with cloud coming on, becoming more and more part of the strategy for banks, there's accelerators, right? There's things that are no longer, hey, you're developing software from scratch. I mean, most software is just, other pieces and repositories that are reused for other purposes. And I think the cloud is giving us a lot of good opportunity to put those capabilities together where, technically it's a build, but, a lot of the accelerators and the development has been done for you. So you can have more of the power in your hands.
Yeah, really good points, Neal. And let's talk a little bit more about that. A question for you specifically around open banking certainly has a huge role here. What do you see the role as open banking playing in the digital transformation of lending overall?
Yeah, I think if you think about the essence of open banking, it's about putting the power back into the customer's hands, right? It's their data, and letting them procure it, provision it, that to make it more convenient for them and to give them more options as they go through their journeys. And that completely aligns with our mission of, making banking easier. So I think open banking is going to be a cornerstone for digital transformation. One, if you think about from a retail and in a small business perspective, you're making onboarding much, much more seamless and fast, right? You're pre-filling data, you're doing BSA AML checks, which also reduces the risk on the banking side. So I think it's a win-win, right? It's convenient for the customer, but from a banking side, you have that information. I think from a commercial client's perspective, there's also a huge opportunity there. I mean, we started our open banking journey in commercial cards, and this is where, we enable or provide APIs that enable issuance, transfer, risk management, all to our customers for them to be able to issue commercial cards. We see that continuing in the commercial space with supply chain lending, treasury management, and other areas, and we continue to work through different POCs and have various ideas on how we can continue to utilize open banking to better serve our customers. I think the part of open banking that is great is that it is customer provision, right? The customer has the ability to use that data in the way they want to use their data. Now, as a financial institution, we have to balance how much we use that information that we have to cross sell and kind of be there to avoid the creepy factor. We're not Netflix, customers don't want us to tell them exactly everything that we want to do. And, I was like, how does Netflix know everything I want to watch? I think we've got to be careful there, but at the same time, I think we can make, the lending process, digital transformation, a lot more rich as we start, getting more into open banking.
Yeah, and when used in the right way, it is truly valuable. But there is kind of a fine line. So appreciate you sharing that. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the key segments. You all have mentioned some of the different parts that this impacts for sure. Want to talk a little bit more about mortgage, and Sherry, I'll put this question to you. What do you see as the biggest opportunities for digital transformation related to securing and servicing mortgages?
So, Holly, it's a great question, and I have a lot of passion in this space, and I know Neal already started to talk a little bit about mortgage, but as you think about the value chain in particular and what clients expect in the whole entire ecosystem, again, thinking through your client journey, if you think about it, again, home ownership, you think about the cost to purchase, cost to acquire, et cetera. If you think about that entire journey, some of your homeowners, may engage with you before they're ready. And as you think about early on, how are you thinking about serving that client or that prospect with the opportunity and preparing them for home ownership, all the way through when they're ready and they're ready to purchase a home. And we think about the origination to servicing. One thing I think all too often is missed is that many times you'll hear specifically, hey, let's go and build a digital front door, and think about the client experience in the digital manner to go and meet clients out in the digital space, because that's where they're starting their home searches more than not. And nobody's really thinking about that back end. And the reality is you've got to be focused on the entire value chain, thinking through origination to servicing. And candidly, if you think about the year we've just come off of over the last year and a half, servicing proved as just as important for folks who maybe hadn't been doubling down, investing, and thinking about transformation in the servicing space as we all work through COVID and the CARES Act, and similar to what we talked about with PPP. And the reality is, if you can serve your clients well, not just from origination all the way through onboarding, but after they do have the keys to their home and they're with you and you're thinking about servicing them, you can build incredible loyalty in that space, and those clients can be with you for life. So I think the areas of opportunity, as I think about the value chain in mortgage in particular, a lot of folks have focused heavily on the origination space, the digital front door per se, but where there's incredible opportunity, I think, to still unlock is thinking through all those manual processes that need to be automated in the fulfillment space. And can be, when you think about consistent, repeatable processes, there's area of opportunity there in a big, big way. And candidly, clients expect it. Clients expect the fact that, if they can go out and give you a few pieces of information, or you can fetch it on their behalf as some sort of aggregator, they expect you to use the information that's out there in order to make it easy for them along that journey. As you think about the average cycle time to close a loan in the current market conditions, the cost to manufacture loans, again, I think there's incredible opportunity in the space looking at all those manual processes where you can leverage automation and be much more robust and meet your clients where they expect to be met. The other piece I would just mention when I think about mortgage segment, and again, that entire value chain, as you think about the entire ecosystem and experience and journey for that client, it's not just about the mortgage. It's also thinking about how and which do you have that opportunity to introduce the client to maybe a broader bank, and thinking about things like, hey, they may need the opportunity to have a checking account, to have their mortgage drafted against. How about insurance? And so as we really think about harnessing the power and where we're looking to go with transformation for the entire client experience, there's incredible opportunity in that space as well. So just a couple of, I think, the areas where there's a lot of passion that I have. And as you start to really think about transformation, it's more than digital transformation, it's business transformation as well to meet your clients' needs.
Definitely, yeah. And I like you brought up the point of using the data in the right way, again, kind of similar to what Neal had mentioned. So really, really important. So a couple more questions just to round out our conversation. Would love to get more into the leadership lessons. So Sherry and Neal, again, you're doing this work directly in the trenches. Neal, maybe I'll start with you on this one. As you reflect on your direct experience with this work of digital transformation, which elements of the process do you think were the most challenging to implement? And what were your biggest learnings or takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think with anything, right? Especially if you're in technology, you get enamored with the technology, and you want to utilize that technology or technologies, but you have to start with the business problem, right? There has to be what are you trying to solve for the customer, the associate, and start there. You don't want to be a hammer looking for a nail. Really understand the competitive advantages of the business. So we talked about build versus buy. Well, I think if you understand what is your secret sauce? How are you winning? Is it on price? Is it on service? Is it on, just, geography? Like, you have to think about that and then make your technology decisions that really support that, so you can lean into your strengths and then maybe optimize areas where, you're not as strong, or maybe where you're losing some market share. So I think, again, number one is start with the business problem, and then be agile as you go through that, because you may think something worked or is going to solve a problem. You try it out, and you may have to, kind of step back and pivot and, start something else. Number two, I think the biggest piece is automation, right? Like, look for end-to-end automation. When I think about the pipelines that you build to actually get your technology to then solve a business problem, what you don't want to do is, hey, we can do this great big effort, get something into production, but we all know the market changes, new requirements come up, economics change. How are you going to repeatedly improve, continuous improvement, continuous innovation? If you don't automate the process, you're never going to get that agility, because part of agility is being able to then react quickly. We talked about speed. I think it's come up. Ajay and Sherry both talked about speed to market. Well, that speed to market requires that you focus on building the right pipelines from a technology perspective to get your business requirements and get them through a pipeline, A/B testing, things that you can really go out there and see if customers are, reacting in a positive way. So you're not just doing these big bang sort of integration or implementations. But I'd say, two big things: just focus on the business problem, and then really try to be automated once you start from the beginning, so you can continue that pace of innovation.
Great points, for sure. Sherry, what would you add? What have been some of your learnings in this work?
Yeah, I think the two big ones, and I think Neal started down this path, and I'll kind of double click on it further, is technology can solve business problems when it works, but if you lay them over a broken process, you're still going to have the same broken process. And so all too often, as you think about early on having the conversation of what's the business problem we're trying to solve, really thinking about reimagining potentially business processes as well, in parallel to then determining what is the right capability or technology to solve the problem. So that's a great lesson learned. And I think all of us have probably been there, done that. And it's really important that you start, I think, before we just say, let's go shop and think about buy versus build or hybrid. Do we really understand what we're trying to solve? And do we have a broken process issue that we need to first resolve or resolve in parallel? The second big one I would just say is generally speaking in terms of change management. And if you think about the way you're working, so in terms of client journeys, client-centric approach, and really thinking through not only client experience, but teammate experience, understanding that you need to bring your stakeholders together early on to co-create, and really thinking about what is it that you're looking to deliver. Because change management, we all know, your technology strategy is only as good as your adoption strategy. And you can build an amazing piece of technology and or an amazing experience, but if the folks that are used to use it for adoption aren't in it with you early on, you essentially may wind up redeploying all over again. And so really thinking about that change management aspect early on, co-creating your client journey, thinking about client journey, teammate journey, front stage, backstage, and what is it that you need to prioritize from a capability perspective to solve the business problem, and really bringing all those stakeholders along early. In my opinion, it's critical to your success of anything you're looking to deploy.
Yeah, really important point, Sharon. I think that change management point, I know we do a lot of thought leadership and, different types of conversations at BAI. And I would say pre-pandemic, we heard a lot about the need to get better skills around change management within banks and credit unions. And then the pandemic came along and that just exploded. So I think really good, important things that you guys have touched on in terms of the technology, but also process, the change management, just the mindset. And Ajay, we'll close it out with you here. You certainly work with a lot of different clients. You've seen, a lot of these projects. What advice do you have for leaders who are listening to this, who are looking at lending as a service and just digital transformation in this space more broadly?
Great. Again, we got a lot of good advice right away, right now from both Neal and Sherry, and I think that absolutely is what we see everywhere. I think I heard those comments. Technology is not going to solve your problem. you have to look at, what is your, how are your business processes? I think, my only advice to anybody or everybody is that, it is not about technology at all. So even if, whether you are in the technology team, operations team, business team, it's not about technology. It's about business. It's about the business process. It's about the people. It's about the people who are your customers who are using it. It's about the people, the teammates that you have in your organization who are helping your clients. So it's all about, how do you really change? And we talked about, Sherry talked about change management. I think that's an extremely important element of any of these transformations. You will hear all the buzzwords of, APIs to, connect to multiple systems, automation, AI, ML to be, bring all STP processing in your house, to leverage, hyperscalers and cloud platforms, to bring in data analytics and, alternate sources of, insights. All of those are great, but in isolation, none of them are going to solve your problem. So I think it's about, stepping back. In my view, it just step back. And like everything we've seen last 3 years has reminded us, we have to remind ourselves and keep the purpose at the core. What is the purpose? What are you trying to do? And if you drive yourself by the purpose and take a step back, clients have used design thinking, they have used service design approach to really bring in the human element to it. What is it that is not working, and what is it that is expected, both externally by our clients and internally by our teammates. And I think if you bring that element together, you have enough technologies, platforms, service partners in here who can help you. But I think if you start from reimagining the process, bringing in some kind of a human element to the purpose you're trying to drive, and then look at the journeys, it will help you really carve out the path, which will be interesting. And again, you will have to you will see benefits as you go along that. So I'll just end it with this. It's not technology. It's actually looking at it end to end from a business perspective and reimagining the whole process, which will really help you get there.
Great. Well, a great point for us to end on and really pull this all together. So thank you. Ajay, Sherry, Neal, thank you so much for sharing your insights on this really important topic. I think you've given everyone who's listening a lot of great takeaways, different things to consider, different layers to really dig into as they're doing this important work. And thanks for all of you for watching today. Be sure to check out the other content in this BAI Deep Dive series, and you can visit BAI.org for more information on the key issues that financial services leaders are facing today and into the future. Thanks again, and have a great day.